Okay, so I should start.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about how to market a blockchain project because I think that is something that kind of, always comes after the development, and sometimes it's nicer to think about it from the very beginning. So just, let's start with the boring part so we can pass it fast. So maybe you will be thinking like, why am I qualified to talk about this? I've actually been in the marketing space for over 15 years now. And I've been seeing, I've been dealing with marketing from the different sides of the story. So I have been involved in marketing big brands, international brands. Later on, I've also worked for marketing agencies, so I've dealt with lots of clients from the agency side of things. And I've been in the blockchain space for over 3 years now. I ended up there completely accidentally. I'm also a fiction author, so I started writing content on Steemit. I ended up earning crypto. I had no idea what it was, how it worked, what to do with it. So I kind of, fell down the rabbit hole of the whole space. Later on, I was hired by a fintech blockchain company to market their project for the ICO. So we went through the roller coaster, and so all sides of the story, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the ICO. And also later on, I was involved in go-to-market strategy for that project. At the moment, I'm head of marketing at AmaZix. AmaZix is a global blockchain consultancy firm and a marketing firm. So my function is mainly helping all our clients who are blockchain projects to serve them with different marketing services. So so it feels like, I can look at the space and at the marketing from different angles, and I've seen it from different sides of the story. So this what we will be talking about may not be a very popular kind of, standard marketing approach that many blockchain projects are pursuing, especially the ones who are still copying the ICO marketing models, which unfortunately right now don't work. So before we start, I would like just to make this fast journey from the ICO kind of hype times until now. So a few years ago, many projects were using the blockchain card, right? Blockchain was the next kind of, shiny thing, the next very popular kind of term that many projects used. And it was very attractive for investments. People were really interested in the whole thing. And very often, projects were just putting blockchain underneath just because it was very popular. So very often they didn't really need to use the tech, but it was bringing loads of benefits, so they were artificially embedding the whole thing in their business model. And as a result, sort of what was happening, just a few examples back then, what was happening was really amazing. Even Ice-T kind of renamed into long blockchain, and based on that, their share prices started going up like really fast. Back then, we had the times where all you needed was a good story and a decent white paper. So blockchain startups were raising billions actually without any live product in place, and things which couldn't happen otherwise in other kind of ways of fundraising were really picking up. And those were kind of, some people are still nostalgic about those times, but those times kind of, also included loads of juggling, because when projects were going through the ICO, on top of building the thing, on top of dealing with their project. They had so many different elements they still had to take care of. There were lots of things about listing their token into exchanges. They had to deal with the Telegram community, the token. They had to take care of the token buyers. Market making was something they were looking at. There was lots of hype, shield, influencers, all this kind of stuff that was coming on top of everything else. And it was kind of exciting, easier to raise money, but at the same time, loads of juggling to do. And in general, with lack of regulation and everything else, it was kind of very similar to Wild Wild West. So moving forward, kind of, things got harder these days, because these days kind of, different things happened in the space. And as a result, we ended up with, we've been hearing about bear market since, almost 2 years now. And people are kind of, bear market term has become one of the excuses of, why it's much harder to market and to also fund blockchain projects these days. Another aspect of the thing is also the ICO disappointments. Lots of token buyers have been burned out so much. There have been so many ICO scams, so many sad stories around the space, that many token buyers sort of got disappointed and decided either to leave the space or are now way more cautious and do deeper due diligence and are not really fooled with just a nice story or just a well-written white paper anymore. So they they're tougher requirements. And aside from that, tougher requirements came in because also the fundraising kind of started shifting from retail, from ICOs into more institutionalized sphere, which sort of brought, now fast forward at the moment, what is happening, we get more institutional investors versus retail investors. More regulation has entered the space, fewer retail buyers, obviously. And now you no longer can kind of, hypothetically talk about stuff. Now investors are looking for real solutions for real problems and not invented problems. Most of them require MVP in place, something tangible. And also on top of, very often when you move to institutional investor space, and especially if you are pitching to investors who are not familiar to the blockchain technology, you kind of have this challenge to double sell, right? You're selling the idea of the project and the need of it, but also you are selling the idea of the blockchain technology and have this extra challenge of explaining how it works and kind of having this extra element on top of it. So it's definitely not as easy to raise money and to build the project and later on to market it as it was in the early days. But still, the thing is that if you look at it from the different angle, and I'll explain you what I mean, you don't really need to, you can market your blockchain project in such a way that you won't depend directly on the crypto market prices and the health of the market in general. You will not completely depend on token buyers, on exchanges, influencers, and everything that is going on around you. And you can kind of, approach the fundraising from a completely different perspective. And while building your product, you can create very meaningful relationships with your future end users. So it's kind of, what I will be talking about will be a more holistic approach and more high-level approach of how to look at everything and kind of diminish the dependency on things that you can't control, and look at how you can market your project that is more dependent on the quality of the project, of the quality of the team, of your efforts, and everything else that is under your own control. So it's not easy, and it's a hard work. There is no shortcut for it, but it's absolutely possible. And I'll kind of try to walk you through it and explain what I mean exactly. But in the very beginning, as a first step, what is needed to be done is a little bit of a paradigm shift. So I saw this picture ages ago, probably over 20 years ago, when I was studying at university. It's from the book by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So on this picture, some of you will see a very old, not so attractive woman, or you will see a very attractive woman from a profile. So once kind of, whichever you see, once you see the other option, it kind of shifts the way you look at things. And I think based on my experience with working with our clients, there are lots of misperceptions that I think we can kind of look differently at, which will help you sort of, look at things differently, and as a result, sort of, try to approach things more effectively. So
Sorry, it's a bit disappointing. I can only see the the profile lady, but not the other one. I used to be able to see both.
Okay, so this is the nose of the old lady. This is the chin. Sort of, this is the eye. Can you see it?
It's so frustrating where you're like, I've seen that before. I should be able to do it, but it's like
me too. But I forgot it. I can't anymore.
Okay, so the old lady is like, this is her hair. This is the nose, the mouth, and the chin, and this is her eye. Can you see it now?
No, sorry. But
why do you want to see the old lady? You see the good one. Come on.
Okay, do you want me to leave it for a minute?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Screenshot it, Leon.
Yeah. So the two things that I'm trying to sort of, change the perception about, because based on, the perception that I had from many of the clients, and it may be obvious to you, so excuse me if I'm bringing this up, but, the thing is that very often the, projects don't really realize that the blockchain is not the service or the offer. The blockchain is not what you are going to, unless, the project is building a new type of blockchain. Usually most of the blockchain projects are building something else and offering something else as a result at the end, right? The blockchain is just the tag that you are using to enable, or to make the thing more efficient or cost effective or whatever it is, right? It's just the tag. So the problem is very often when I'm asking my clients, like, what is your differentiator? What is the unique part of your project? And they say, we use blockchain. It's really kind of, wrong to look at it from that side of the story, because maybe the differentiators are the benefits that the project and the service will be bringing, which can be built only through blockchain. But positioning a blockchain as what you are offering, or as the main thing that you are going to market, and position yourself as a blockchain project while you are not, is kind of, is going to confuse the end users. Just let me give you an example. Like, there are so many applications of the blockchain in the fintech space, the payment systems, etc., etc. And as a result, it's not a blockchain project. It's a financial services that you are offering, right? It's so basically you should look at it at the blockchain kind of. You definitely can mention it. You can use it in your marketing materials, but that should not be the spotlight, and that should not be your main thing, because if this is the differentiator, it means that, you're no different from any other projects who are also using blockchain. Or, if you're telling that you're a blockchain project, what if blockchain is not the only tech that you are using? What if you are using blockchain and AI? Are you an AI project, company, or are you a blockchain company? So for me, the way I'm looking at this is just the tech. And this is how it should be positioned. It should not really have the hero role in it. The only cases where the blockchain elements should be more, described more in depth is, for example, if you are pitching investors who are specifically investors in the blockchain field and want more detailed information and are really interested in the tech. Other than that, especially for end users, blockchain should kind of take a backseat. And following the same logic, the token is not.
Can I make a comment on that, Annie? I think
Sure.
I mean, it's not so different from like something that like a rule that existed way before blockchain. That is like, how do you go from describing a feature of your product to a benefit? And it is actually really not easy, because our brain is like, it's more concrete to say like this does that, like this does etc. But when you think about it, like if you describing tasks is like really annoying for end users, because you're not giving them the benefits. And there's this very old-fashioned example, I'm pretty sure in all the marketing books, but that still works actually, and it's like the can of soda example. So it's like to give you an example on like the feature like versus benefit, is that the can is cylindrical. Okay, well, that's like a fact and a feature, but it's easy to hold is the benefit. And same thing as in like it's in aluminum, and so that's a fact and a feature, but the real benefit is that it keeps your Perrier cold. And it's the same with blockchain. It's like, why is there a benefit of using blockchain? So
yeah, absolutely, because your end users eventually care about the benefit, right? Most of them will not even know how blockchain works, and they don't even have to know that. But what they will care about is what problem are you solving and what benefit do you bring to their lives. So that's kind of what the marketing spotlight should be on. And following the same logic, the token is not your product either. You're right. The token is what you issued for fundraising. It may have some functionality in your ecosystem, but it's not the end product. It's not what the end users should be promoted to, right? So marketing the token specifically to token buyers is one thing, but marketing your product to your end users may be a separate thing. Ideally, the way I prefer is the way we did our ICO was, the way we positioned it was not for speculators, not saying, okay, this is this amazing token because we are so great, it will raise in value, and that is why you should buy it. What we did was we were promoting the project and the benefits it would bring and what we wanted to build, and we're saying that by buying the token, just with the same crowdfunding logic, right? By buying the token, you will help us build that and be part of it, right? So looking at the blockchain and the token differently will help you kind of not get too distracted and sidetracked by these two elements, which are obviously very important, but not so important for the end user. And as I said, in most cases, if you focus on the token buyers only and just go through the very focused token related marketing and token related activities and promotion, very often, there may be some overlap, but in many cases, especially if you are having a B2C blockchain you are building a B2C product or service, in most cases, token buyers will not be your customers. So it's just, I guess those elements have to be taken into account, and you should just think about this from the other angle and think whether so much focus and especially most of the projects that do mistakes are the ones who put focus only on this, right? Put focus only on the token, only on the blockchain. And then later on, when they have to go to market, only then they think about their end users.
Or never. And they just want to raise money.
Or yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. But those are not. I mean, I'm sure, like, you know, those are not the ones that we're talking about and want to help.
Gotcha.
Very often, you know, I've been kind of, you know, thinking a little bit about, do you even need a token, right? Because very often, many projects are issuing the token for fundraising purposes, and you know, these fundraising kind of models have changed so much. Like, we had the ICOs. It was an amazing model in a sense that it was really democratizing investments. It was really kind of going to your end users and kind of having the opportunity for anyone to fundraise and anyone to invest and buy the tokens. But obviously, the human greed and many other elements kind of spoiled the whole space. So although the mechanics and the logic behind it was amazing and it was actually working, both ICO founders and also the token buyers, on the other hand, kind of, screwed up the whole thing. So it stopped working. It lost its credibility. I mean, these days it's very hard to fundraise with ICOs. IEOs, I feel like it's very, I personally sort of, haven't seen many successful IEOs happening these days, and it sort of gives a lot of control, centralized control to the exchanges, which is something that, I personally don't like so much. And for STOs, it seems to be the only model that works these days pretty fine. The only problem is it's not really democratizing fundraising, because there are so many complex activities and costs associated for initiating the STO the right way that you probably need to seed fund yourself to be able to initiate STO. So I don't really think that it's for everyone. So now when we have, all these different models, none of them is probably ideal, but, do you even need a token? I mean, personally, I think, especially for utility tokens, I just have a feeling that if it's the only reason for issuing the token is just to raise funds, and it doesn't really have an embedded kind of logical role in your ecosystem, if it's just an issuing a token for the sake of issuing something in order to raise funds, I wouldn't recommend it, and I would try to explain why. So when we did our ICO, what happened was we ended up with loads of token buyers. We ended up with the token. We had the token on the exchanges. And while we were busy building the product and, concentrating and focusing on kind of delivering the promises that were set up in the ICO, there were so many distractions. We were kind of, we had all these token buyers we had to take care of. At the same time, we were trying not really to care too much about the token price, but still we had to. So there were lots of things associated with that. So on top of, focusing on what is important, we also had so many different elements of the related to the token that were sometimes kind of, making us have challenges making the right business decisions, just because the token related decisions were getting on the way. So all I'm saying is that, by having the token, you will have some extra complexity associated with it, and you should just, be cautious about that. Just realize what issuing a token actually means, especially if it's with retail distribution. But in many cases, the token does make sense, and it can work out. And if its role was not just issuing it to raise funds, then I guess for adoption, the easiest thing is to realize that whoever you are issuing the token for, it has to be tailored to their lifestyle. And what I mean by this is, I've been in the blockchain space for 3 years. Obviously, I have wallets. I'm paid with crypto as a salary. So I'm kind of, a bit more advanced than the average users, right? But even I still don't feel like, we have the right user experience, that, we have the right kind of things in place where I could absolutely comfortably feel like, the crypto and the wallets and using the tokens is way easier or better than whatever we're used to, right? So if you have a B2C project that is targeting like average, like non-crypto users, it's very hard to sort of, to think that they would love your service so much that they would go through all these barriers to open a wallet somewhere else, to sort of learn how it works and everything else. So if you want to get people to use the token and to have the thing actually work with less friction, is you have to make sure that it's accessible. It's accessible. You're not bringing them into your space. You're adjusting the blockchain space and the wallets and the tokens into their part. So, integrated stuff through your app, just making sure it's as easy, it works under the hood. They don't have to jump all the loops, and they can easily, without any frictions, with several, button clicks, get to that stage. Otherwise, the adoption part, and you will have like extra barrier for user acquisition, because they will have to learn extra stuff, and it may scare people a little bit because they are already skeptical about the whole thing when they are just starting, right? So yeah, first of all, I would say think about whether the token is really needed or not, and if yes, find out ways to make sure that the way it works in your ecosystem, in your service, is the way that is kind of, comfortable and very easy to use for the type of people that you are after, and is kind of part of their lifestyle. So if they are already using mobile apps, they don't have an extra things to do on top of it. They just download your app and use it within the whole thing. And I think that's kind of one of the elements that is going to help for just, mass adoption, because until you have the right UI and UX and like easy way to use the tokens, it's really complex for regular people. So basically, what are the important things that you should focus on? The thing is, I already sort of slightly mentioned about this, that many projects are focusing on building the tech and tech solely. So many clients that we are having, have purely tech teams and no one else, right? So eventually they are coming to us for marketing services before they have to launch the thing. And unfortunately, what I'm realizing is they are coming when it's very late. Like they are coming 1 month before go to market. And obviously, because of the time limitations, there are certain things that can be done, but loads of things cannot be done, because some of the things that you're supposed to do really take time. So what I would recommend, and not many are doing it, is actually, while building the thing, already sort of put the groundwork and start doing the marketing during the process, because it will save you lots of time. It will make sure that your marketing efforts kind of, are having better effects. Because when I'm talking about marketing, unfortunately, in the blockchain space, this legacy of ICO marketing is kind of, what people have in their minds by saying marketing. And what ICO marketing usually was, which is kind of, I'm calling it a lazy marketing, because what it was usually was, it was mainly paid placements, right? It was mainly paying for articles to appear in certain media. It was paying for premium listings. It was paying influencers. So to me personally, one didn't even have to know marketing to do ICO marketing, because it was just, how much money do you have? just let's spend it, and you know, and that's it. It's no brainer, right? When I'm talking about marketing, I'm talking about like a more real stuff, more organic stuff, more relationship buildings, and you know, less of the things that you can't control, and less things that are kind of very expensive, and the ROI is you know, still quite suspicious. So so yeah, I would say that what you should focus on.
Can you give some examples maybe on you know, things like that might be obvious to you, but maybe not to all of the builders?
Yeah, sure. So, for example, during the ICOs, what was very popular was paying influencers to make a YouTube video and to sort of shield your coin, right? Back then, in 2017, like their rates were just, you know, mind blowing. You know, some were charging for up to $50,000 just for one YouTube video talking about your project. They were having big exposure. As a result, many people were registering for your ICO, many were buying your tokens. But the people who are following these type of influencers were buying the token in order to dump it on the exchange as soon as it's, you know, its price goes up, or as soon as it's listed on the exchanges, right? Because they're, you know, many just didn't even care about what the project is about. They didn't even read the white paper. All they wanted was just, you know, to get the token with a discount in the pre-sale and then just dump it in the exchange. So as a result, you are spending money, you are acquiring these people as token buyers, but later on, like, you know, you don't have them as users, right? Which means that at the end of the day, when you will be getting to the point where you are acquiring users, you will have to do the same exercise again, and you will have to spend your marketing budget once more, because you will need to acquire a different type of people, right? So the same with paid media. You know, they were spending several thousands of dollars just for one article to appear in Cointelegraph. So it was kind of, you know, what I call is cold traffic. So you get the attention, but you buy the attention, but you don't really buy the trust, and it's very hard to retain these kind of people. So if it's just for a short fix, yes, but it was very expensive. Like when we were doing our ICO, as you know, when I was asking about how much budget we should allocate to marketing, everyone was saying minimum 150K. And because they were going to that route, right? Paid PR, influencers, paid listing sites and stuff like that. What we did was we basically went all organic. We spent only about, I think, 35 to 40,000 on Facebook ads, because back then they were allowed. But everything else was all done in-house by 3 people from the marketing team, and it was heavily focused on transparency, building trust, lots of content creation, lots of live streams, live Q&As, showcasing the team and all that stuff, which back then was a little bit of different approach, and it was a bit risky because even I didn't know whether it will work out or not. But eventually it did, and it did quite well, because instead of spending minimum 150K and over, like I knew some ICOs who spent about 1 million on marketing. We spent about 40,000 max, and we raised 20 million. So yeah. So yeah, my point is basically, if yes.
What is your token actually used for? Like, what value does it give to its holders?
Yeah, so initially, I mean, just as a disclaimer, I'm not with that project for over a year already. the whole core team left because they did a major pivot and kind of changed drastically the product itself, and we just didn't agree with it. But the initial concept was, it was a project about banking the unbanked and providing bank accounts to people who couldn't open them in banks. And the token was basically the utility payment token that was going to be used for financial transactions. Now they have pivoted. Now what they have it as a first step for a full banking services is fundraising platform where the token is used to fundraise for different projects, like personal projects, small personal projects for people who don't have the bank accounts. So it's just a small kind of fraction of what was supposed to happen. So yeah, as I said, like even if you can't really initiate the marketing efforts right away, at least sort of, in the beginning, address it in terms of at least have the strategy in place, at least have a vision, at least understand what you want to do in the future. But kind of coming to look at marketing just 1 month before the launch, it's just, you're losing so much time, valuable time that could have been used so much more effectively. And as I said, because, there are loads of organic ways of marketing, we're not talking about spending too much money on marketing from day one, right? It's just about addressing and looking at it. So
I think do you mind if I add? I have a comment on that. I think this is kind of where you don't need to have money, but you need to spend time on it, like from the start. And to be honest, it's also like, what I've seen work really well is if you include, the earlier you include people, the more support you're going to have from them, because like people feel included. So then it's like, then they support you, then they like act as a growth relay per se, like influencers if you want, for you without having to pay someone. But most people are still very open, like not like very busy or very crazy influencers, but like still like CEOs of like companies are still very open to sit on a demo and give feedback, and this is like extremely valuable for the feedback, but also the visibility you get early on. And even if you show wireframes or anything, it's quite amazing actually what comes out of it. So
absolutely. If you see my following slides, you will see that, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. But
sorry.
No, it's okay. Sorry. It's okay. Yeah, no, it's fine. I think the other thing that we have to take into account is it's very, very important to know for whom we are building whatever we are building, right? For whom we have the solution, and sort of have that person in mind, because it's very important to make sure that we are kind of we have that. While building the thing, it will sort of dictate and sort of make easier for you for decision making, not only about marketing but also about different features and stuff like that. So here in this photo, like the target audience or the people you are building it for are not in the crowd. That's the rock star on the stage. That's like the most important person for your project. That's the person that you should always think about, because the better you understand that person, better him, it will be easier to understand how you are going to talk to that person, how are you going to market the thing, and how are you going to build the thing that actually resonates and brings value and is something that they really need and would anticipate and wait for to come out so they can get it. So that person is very often we kind of get distracted with the tag and the features, and we've been in the project for so long that we kind of we look at it from our perspective, and very often when it's very clear for us but not specifically very clear for the end user. So always make sure that you just have that detailed description of that one person. Just pick one person, even like for example in fiction novels, they craft a character, right? craft one ideal character of who you are after, ideally, who's your ideal user. And try to put together like as many details as you can, you know, the lifestyle, the type of activities that are involved with, where do they get content, where do they interact online, offline, because that will really help you understand what's the best ways to market them, what's the best ways to approach them, how and where to connect. So yeah, I mean, that rockstar is going to be kind of, you know, your guiding light. Both in building the tech, but also, you know, especially in the marketing efforts. And once you know what type of people you are after, when I was talking about, you know, addressing marketing while you are building the tech, take them with you to a journey. Like, you know, take them through the process, just, you know, share updates, show the team, talk about the project, and kind of, you know, create this relationship. Build the community around you who will be, you know, following your progress, who will be rooting for you, because like that they will feel really kind of emotionally invested. They will be following you and kind of, you know, getting more insights, both about your team, about your motivation, about what you are building, where are you at, what's the progress, and it will feel like, you know, you have people around you who kind of, you know, as we know, like they will provide feedback, they will bring some insights, they will communicate with you, they will follow you along the way. So then, you know, by the time you are going to market, it won't be a cold traffic. It won't be just someone who clicked a banner and got to your website for the first time. They will already have stuff happening, and they will already know the backstory. And while you are taking them to this journey, and that is why I'm saying that, you know, spending like this time effectively is very important, because relationships can't be built in one day, right? If someone comes to you and says, we want a really kind of, you know, nice community around us who will be helping us later along the way, you can't build that relationship in just 1 month. So while building the product, if you take them with the journey with you and you are kind of, you know, transparent and open and kind of, you know, share stuff with them and have a place where you have them around you and you interact and engage. Like what worked for us really well was, you know, we had a Telegram group of over 10,000 people. Obviously, as you mentioned, there is a time issue. You can't really be on Telegram the whole day, but we made sure that at least one person from the team was there for about half an hour, you know, and then we were covering each day just for half an hour. And they really loved this direct interaction and direct kind of communication with the team members, right? So that is something that is very important, because when you build these relationships, at the end of the day, you will, you know, during this relationship, you will have options to send them surveys, to get them to beta test whatever you are building, to get their insights. And that would help you kind of, you know, make sure that you're building something that is, you know, that is what they are looking for. Because if you create the relationship and you take to the journey the right people that you already had identified, then, you know, that type of people will get the right product based on what you've got from them as a result. And then the next stage, which is like the amazing thing, once you get here, you're kind of, you know, you have absolutely no problems, is turning them into diehard fans. Obviously, you know, it's not going to be like all of them who are in your community. There will be like a core, smaller team of diehard fans, but they will be kind of, you know, the people that will help you with your marketing. I mean, they will be kind of your extended marketing team that will be doing the word of mouth spread, which is way more valuable than any kind of banner advertising out there, right? So those are the ones who will become later on your brand ambassadors. Those are the ones who will help you promote the thing before it's out. Those are the ones that are, you know, they're very, very valuable. So what we had in our case, and I was very surprised to sort of, see that happened. When I joined that project initially, for me, it was very kind of hard to understand how do you actually do this, because it's financial services, right? Eventually, like, it was a bank account. Like, who needs yet another bank account? Or who is actually inspired or motivated about bank accounts, right? It's not beer, it's not music, it's not sport, it's not something that is kind of by default something that people are already passionate about. How do you actually make a brand that is lovable, right? Because ideally, like, the top level ideal case scenario, which is, I absolutely understand that it's much harder to get to that level when it's a tech project, but you want to get the Harley Davidson effect, right? You want to be more than a brand, you want to be more than a project, you want to be part of their lifestyle, part of their, you want them to be part of your tribe, and that's when the magic happens. So just, with my small experiment, based on my experience, even fintechs, ended up with that, because I was amazed how we ended up to a stage where people were actually paying online to buy our t-shirts with our logo on it. Like, even I wasn't that motivated to wear those t-shirts at work, but that is the level you want to achieve, because when it gets to there, like, I had this core team of the community, without even asking, every time they were seeing a relevant articles, they were seeing something that was about potential competitor, a new thing that emerged, they were sending me links all the time. So, they were saving lots of time. I mean, it takes lots of time to get to this stage, but once you have that team, they dedicate time and they help you a lot with your efforts, and eventually they save you time. What they also save is lots of money as well, because word of mouth marketing doesn't cost you anything. But on the other hand, also, just as an example, what we had was, so after the ICO, because we were aiming to get a banking license, we found out from the regulator that we couldn't use ICO money raised from the ICO for the minimum capital requirement for the bank. So we had to go to Crowdcube and do an equity crowd sale on top of it, which kind of made me really freak out, because I felt like it's very unfair, it will backfire. We just raised 20 million 6 months ago and stuff like that. But because we had the loyal community, just 800, part of the raise, which was, 850,000 pounds, was raised from the token buyers, because we kind of, nurtures them, and, they were with us post ICO. 850,000 was purchased by the token buyers, and we spent zero for that, because all we did was one live stream and one email letter to all token buyers. So it's kind of, this is how valuable that can be. And the more you nurture it, the more benefits you will be getting. So that is something that you want to get. And obviously the kind of, the question is how. It's not easy. It's, as you said, it requires lots of time and sort of, dedication to that aspect of the project. And I do get it that, it may feel like it's not the most important thing, and there are things that, need bigger priorities. So maybe it can be done gradually or a bit later, but in order to get to that level, what you need to do is basically, as we already mentioned, obviously, talk about the benefits, talk about more about the problems that you are solving, about what is it in it for that rock star, for your end user, but also mapping out your competitors, seeing what's out there, try to understand what makes you stand out, what makes you different. And, in some cases, it can be obvious. It can be just, whatever you are building doesn't exist yet, or, that solution is very different and cost effective, or just, the best. or whatever it is. In some cases, it may not be so obvious, or there may be some similar competitors around. There is still a way to sort of work around that, because the things that may differentiate you does not specifically need to be related to the features itself. It may be, let's say, maybe your app is the most user-friendly. It's like, it has the design that is very different. The brand can differentiate yourself, or, compared to your competitors, maybe you have the most likable team and you just, put them out. They are more visible. They build trust and relationship. And that's what makes you stand out, because then they will be more inclined, people buy from people. They will more inclined to come to you versus very similar other solution which has been faceless, right? So figuring out this very important, because this will be basically where you put the spotlight in marketing, right? This will be the thing that you would like to highlight most of the times, that you would like to talk about, and to sort of send out in different types of messages to people. So then that is something that they will think about your brand as soon as they hear your project name. So it's hard, sort of, it's not very easy exercise. It may take a little bit of time. It may need a bit of research in order to see what's happening around you, because that's another thing. Many tech startups, they are so busy by just focusing and building the tag. Sometimes they just forget about what's happening around them, and some things emerge and they just don't notice. So just take a bit of look around you, and then try to understand what is that one thing that really makes you different and unique, and then make sure that you put the spotlight in your marketing on that thing. The other thing is, we always forget, in most cases, tech startups forget about storytelling, and people love stories. Most of the content that may be doing really well may not specifically be the tech-related, in-depth article about how you use blockchain, what's the role of the token, how do you build the features, why what blockchain brings into the space and stuff like that. It may be a story of how the founder came up with the idea. What's the rationale behind it? Why did you actually decide to build these things? What was the backstory? What is the origin story of the brand itself? Like, what is happening around non-technical, like human side of the thing? What are the challenges? What are the benefits? What do you enjoy? Like, showcasing the team where they talk why they decided to join the team. What was their motivation? Why they thought this was a good thing to what's the purpose of it? Why do they enjoy building this more than, working in some other kind of, 9-to-5 corporate place, right? So all this stuff is kind of very important, but also you have to have one storyline of kind of, the story of the project. Like, what are you solving? Who for, why? Because that will be like your clear message that you will be modifying later on when you will be being covered by press, when you will be giving out interviews. So you have to have several storylines, like base storylines, that you will be modifying based on the situation. You can use that story in your, when the founder goes out to make speeches at events, you can use that story in your content, you can use that story for interviews and stuff like that. And, once you craft the concise and kind of, emotional right story behind everything, and have consistency in telling that, people will be sort of, people will retell that story to others. So when people talk about your brand, they will tell the story that you have been kind of putting out there. So there will be no confusion. People won't be telling many different things about your project. They will tell the things that are important and that you have decided that you want to share. So that is another kind of exercise that is very beneficial to go through it. And the best way probably is by just making a team workshop and see what each member thinks and looks at from which angle, and come up with something together and be on the same page. The other thing is humanizing the tech, right? Humanizing the tech language, because very often, I mean, I've been in this space for 3 years. I'm not the tech person. I mean, I don't even claim that I know like in-depth knowledge about the technology or anything else. But most probably, you know, you will have more people as your end users that are like me than a very techie geeks. So when you are building the website or when you are writing your marketing material, make sure that it's written in a language that, you know, we will understand, that it's simple enough for us to understand what it is about. So let's say, you know, I still don't know how emails work, right? I don't know when I'm sending the email what happens on the back end, what is happening, what is going on. But I know that, you know, when I send an email, just, you know, within a minute, it will get to the destination. And that's all what I care about. So, you know, putting it into that context, we covered it a little bit, like talking about the benefits, talking about the real life examples, about just, you know, the way I see the role of marketing is making this bridge between the tech and the tech language and the concepts, and putting it into a human language and kind of explaining it to people so they can really understand what it's all about. So in all marketing materials, in the way you speak, I know that tech people are kind of, you know, they have their own terms. They have, when they talk between each other, everything is clear for them. But for an outsider, when we're listening to all that, first of all, you know, which is very dangerous for the project, we don't understand, which means that if you don't understand, you will not be able to care enough to be able to sort of, you know, try to you know, dig deeper or be curious enough to want to learn more. And second, sometimes you even feel a bit stupid. You're kind of, oh my God, like, you know, this is so above me that I'm not even going to try to understand it, because it's very complex and it's really beyond my capability of understanding stuff. So humanizing the tech, putting it into a real life examples, putting it into a natural human language is something that, you know, needs to be done, especially on a public marketing materials. And as you can see, like, there are loads of, you know, puzzle pieces that need to be put together. And as I said, not everything needs to be done together at the same time. But at the very beginning, at least, you just need to, you know, to at least have the vision and the main high level strategy of what you want the marketing to achieve, how are you going to address it, and just, you know, put it together in a way that all elements, you know, support each other, all elements work together in a good way. And eventually, obviously, the strategy that you will be making for marketing should definitely be not a standalone thing. It should be crafted based on your business strategy and your business objectives. So, you know, whatever your business strategy defines and addresses, whichever vision that your company has, whatever targets you have, whoever you want to attract, marketing strategy will just put together an action plan and kind of come up with the ways of achieving this and supporting your business targets. So yeah, I mean, that's basically what we do here at AmaZix. We build holistic marketing strategies for our blockchain clients. And later on, we, you know, if they need to, we help them execute those and make those happen. Yeah, I guess.
Thank you, Annie. This was really, you know, a lot of it is good sense, but you need someone to put it, like you, to put it in the right order and in the simple words to really, you know, have the idea stick. And I really like your conclusion also about, you know, like, I think the personalizing is key. It's like nobody really cares about another tech solution, but you care about the story. And I think Americans for that are so good. Like, you know, they're like,
True.
Oh, like, you know, I had the idea in the middle of the night and I woke up and got a glass of water, and it's like, it's it's a little like, I mean, of course, it's very cheesy, but it works in some times. And the more you can simplify. If you think it's simple, simplify again, and add all the details and documents at the end, not in the front. It's like I also learned a little bit of the whole technical jargon on the tour and on at the conferences, like the pitches that start with like the text slide at first is like, no, like, what problem are you solving? How are you solving it? Like, what makes you different? Like, what is, it's a shift of mindset, and it's not easy, but no, thank you for your great advice. And I don't know if there are more questions or any questions actually before we wrap up. I can ask you if you don't mind sending me or putting the slides on Discord for the other hackers who might not be on the same time zone, or
Sure.
that would really help. And because, as you said, like it's sometimes it's an afterthought, but it is really not. And like you struggle like in the last 5 minutes. Oh shoot! Like we have to do like the pitch, and and it's not, because you need to get the bigger picture before going into the details. So
yeah, I mean, pitch. I think pitch. I mean, until you figure out all the rest, the pitch is like the end product that you're just putting together in and because it has to be concise, it's even harder to make the pitch than just to talk and explain your project, right? So I don't know. I mean, there is this concept I was reading the other day about 100 coffees. So investors were recommending that startup founders who are, planning to pitch investors, they have coffee with 100 investors and just craft that pitch and kind of, tell that, get the confronting questions, understand how much was kind of, grasped in the right way, etc., and then fine tune it, and eventually, 100 coffees is how long it takes to sort of, get it into the ideal state. So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't.
That's a good. That's a good concept.
Can I ask you a question, if it's possible?
Sure.
Thank you for your conversation. It's was very yeah, because I'm more in tech than the communication, so I learned a lot. Thank you. But my question is, for example, I work more in open source project and stuff like this, and we are more based on memes more than stories. So how is the role of memes and the stupid things but that people love in your opinion in marketing and stuff?
Yeah, so it's, going back to the ideal user, right? Like, if in open source, there is a community that's their language, that's the language you should use, right? Like, for example, when I was getting into the blockchain space and, for this ICO, when I was trying to figure out, and, and I was clueless because, I mean, I had a bit of crypto, but that was my knowledge. So I had no idea how to market ICOs and, what it was all about and stuff like that, right? We all were starting from scratch. So the first question I asked was, guys, the crypto community, like, where are they hanging out? Where do they communicate? Which channel do they use? And I was told Telegram. And I was like, okay, we should use Telegram. And everyone was like, yeah, but we never used it before. It's not, we're not used to it, etc. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. You go where the people are and you use the language and the style that they are already using, because converting them into something else is going to be so much harder. You just, it's easier and faster to go to that place to learn about the style of communication and stuff like that. I mean, I've been living on Telegram since 3 years already. And, all these gifts and stickers and, a certain type of communication was not my style. It still isn't my style. But, if you are communicating with these people and you want them to sort of, to pay attention and to get it, then you have to use whatever they prefer using as a style. I mean, for me, I had like the second challenge on top of it, because also back then, and I think it's still the case, in that space, talking to these people, you're probably the only woman around, right? So you end up with this additional lots of, other issues that I don't even want to get into. But yeah, if that's the communication style and you're part of it, you already know that. So it's easier for you. You don't have to adjust and adapt. You just tell the story in that style. So what you need to figure out is like what the story is, what is the main message, and then try to see how you can communicate that in the best way with your, with the memes, for example. For example, what I did, I was, to differentiate slightly, I have personalized GIFs on Telegram, with me on it, right? So it's kind of, it may be a bit cheesy or whatever, but it stands out, right? I'm not using someone else's face, I'm just using mine, right? So whatever people, and then test it out. Like very often on Telegram, what I was doing, I was testing out some things, like I was dropping something that was new and try to see the reactions and just monitor the reactions and see how it works. If people love it, do more of that and kind of go that route. If you feel like, it didn't really resonate with them, just try an experiment, because marketing is, there are certain things that, are already tested and they work and there are fundamental things, but marketing changes so fast. Like even in these 3 years, whatever worked before doesn't work anymore and things are developing. So it's lots of experimenting and trying things out that will work. But definitely, if memes are what they love, just figure out how to put your story in that format, and that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
It's true that it's and going back to like, you don't need to spend money, but you will need to spend a lot of time. It's like what's super important is the consistency as well. Like it's like if you post one thing and then like for 30 days you forget about it, it's like it has to become a habit.
Definitely.
Of, like, just doing it, and like really like the more successful are the more persistent ones, like really like it's
because like when you scroll your threads anywhere, like whether it's Telegram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whatever, like there is so much stuff happening, right? If you don't see something from that project for a week, you may forget, unless you already had the relationship in place, you will forget about that, right? So the next time in a week when you see something from that company, it will feel like that's the first time you're seeing it. So you will be restarting this relationship building because you will be making these gaps, right? And the other thing is, when you are building, I mean, in general, I'm also mentoring startups. In general, when you are coming up with startup ideas, and that's why I am stuck and I really can't figure that out for myself, you want to serve the people you would ideally want to spend time with. Because if you are building something for users and if you are going to this community building route, you will have to spend time with these people. So if you don't enjoy that type of people, it's going to be very hard because they will sense it, right? You will have to go and kind of, you want to serve people you like and you would like to be involved and create relationships with. So, and figuring that out is also important, because otherwise, after a while, it will become a job for you, right? It will be like dealing with colleagues that you may not like, but you have to work with the whole day. So that's another thing to take into account.
And that's true that like if it's the same if you're like, I need to post on a social media platform you don't normally use, you're gonna do it like 5 days and then it's gonna be over. Like it's just gonna be a chore, and that's always gonna fall through the cracks. I mean, it really needs to. I think I read somewhere that like you need to do something for like a consecutive like 28 days for it to become a habit.
Yes.
Which I never, sports or things, like I never got to that. But so for marketing, it's the same. It's like if you don't enjoy it, like, don't do it. And because it's like you're not gonna do it consistently enough for it to matter. And something I've been fighting as well is that like people also like don't be afraid to repeat things, because as Annie said, like you miss a lot of things. So it's like if you're making in your head like super like concise plan, and I've seen so many people do that, it's like, oh, but I already said that like 4 days ago, and you're like, yes, first, but like who saw it in like the 2 seconds of lifetime of your like tweet, and like, you know, like maybe you want to reach out more people, and it's
true. And it should be around the topics that you are passionate about and you can talk about for, you know, a lot, right? It's kind of because, you know, if you are creating content around topics that are not of your interest, you will not really go on for long enough periods to get traction, right? Like all these YouTubers, all these podcasters, people who create content, they usually pick up a topic that they are passionate about because they know they can stick to it for at least a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. But if it's something that you are not interested in, you will do it just for a while. And then, you know, because in the very beginning, it's very hard to get traction in month 1 or month 2. You will just see that, you know, not many people are watching it or listening to it, and you'll just say, okay, whatever. But when you are interested in the topic, then you are getting guests on a podcast, you're talking about a topic, even if no one listened in the very beginning, you learned something, like you enjoyed the process, so it wasn't really a wasted time. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anya. I mean, there's so much more to talk about, but it's very refreshing to hear a lot of your advice, and yeah, like very useful for everybody. I mean, in any industry as well. Like, you know, it's
yeah, in this industry, you know, in different industries, it's different, right? Because you know, depending on the industry, some already are doing this and it's kind of something that is under their focus and stuff like that. But I think marketing has been extremely underestimated, especially for tech startups.
Yeah.
So, and in the blockchain space specifically, they weren't really good cases of really holistic good marketing kind of implemented.
And it's funny because people are like looking for like marketing people. You're like, oh, I need a marketing person, but you really need just someone who's like just also like knows your product or like is passionate about the same thing. Because a marketing person is just what, like you know how to send an email, like you know how to use Telegram, like, so it's like, it's not like this like technical skills. Yeah, like when you have you know, paid placement and like ad management, yeah, it's a full-time job. But in most of the industry, it's more like an organic like continuation of
I mean, the paid efforts usually just amplify what you have out there, right? The problem with paid efforts is you can do banner advertising and you can hire the best person and he will send you 100,000 people to your website. But if you don't have the right foundation in place, what you are eventually doing is you are spending money to have more people know that you're not good enough or you're not ready yet. And you have only one chance for a first impression. So eventually you are paying money to have 100,000 people come to your website, get disappointed, and never try your app later on. So it's always also important, like, what are you advertising and when you are advertising it. You can run ads in the very beginning, but if you're not yet ready, you can run ads to make sure that your content is viewed by more people, for example, right? But when you are running specific targeted ads for user acquisition, for go-to-market, then you have to put the foundation in place first. You have to make sure your website converts. You know, it's structured in such a way that they sign up or they download your app or whatever. They don't come and then disappear, right? So it's PPC and kind of digital advertising is very useful, but it amplifies what's out there and it buys attention, but it doesn't buy trust. So, all it does is put some eyeballs onto your project. And then, what happens then, it's, you may have the best PPC person. He may do his job really great, but it may not still work because all this foundational stuff wasn't done well or wasn't done at all. So.
Well, thank you very much, and yeah, I mean, hang around if you're around this weekend. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from your advice, and I think you're closing this mentoring for today. So
nice. Well,
clap.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
It was useful, and yeah,
very useful, very useful. And I think we're gonna start again in the other conference room at 2 p.m. With a talk in Italian, because at the end of the day, it's still ETHTurin, even if it's virtual. And then a few more things, like a very cool workshop to create a DAO, a workshop to create to mint an NFT, more about like DHack and also DApp Hero, which are amazing tools for developers. So, all right. Well, thank you, Annie.
I'll send over the slides.
Yes,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye.
Bye.